Well, in Minnesota, they arrested the very insane man that murdered the lawmaker and her husband. Um, and it took about 2 days, but they were able to get him. You know, and I'm going to read like little comments by Walls. He said, "One man's unthinkable actions have altered the state of Minnesota. The police chief claimed this was the largest manhunt in the state's history, and that's all I'm going to just mention there. But first off, just the way it was done. Most people, I really believe, if you approach them, especially at their home where they feel the most safe, and you're in the garb of an officer, are probably going to think you're a cop. Like, I know some of us are really paranoid and we'll go, "Oh, can I see your ID? Um, your squad car, whatever other types of proof we would need." But a lot of us, when we're home and we feel again the most safe, if we see someone who's wearing the attire of what are supposed to be the people who are upholding the law, we're not going to think it's someone who's trying to do one of the worst things against the law. And then the fact that he was able to get away for a few days is also really scary, because that's actually part of a pattern where a lot of these different political shooters, if they're not in some like really well populated area, they can sneak off and be gone for a while before they're caught. Um, but really, what I take away from this is that over the last like, people always say the U.S. is divided, it's always had divisions, whatever, but if you really think about, since let's say 2017, when you had that baseball shooting, right, where the House, the Republic, number two Republican in the House, Steve Scalise, almost got killed. And then you kind of go further down the list with the Trump shooting from last year. There are these real outbreaks of violence that are coming up in numbers that we've just never seen before. Um, and it's a symptom of two issues. One is it shows you how easy it is to get a gun, uh, which has a lot to do with just state laws varying from place to place. If you try to pass some, for example, in California, I can just override them by driving to a neighboring state with less restrictive policies. Just it's that's something that's nuanced and unfortunately not going to get fixed, because politicians can keep running on they're trying to take our guns until the end of time. But then the other part of it is the division that you have had rhetoric which has convinced people that the opposing ideology, the opposing political belief is their opponent. Like there are people who actually think that if I speak in favor of the Democrats, even if I don't, I criticize them all the time for being weak and ineffective, uh, that I am their enemy. That, I had a guy who came on my video about the crazy person that was, I think, stole what was it, $90 of stuff from Target and was going high speed and slammed his car, called him the passing the parasite. There was a guy that came to my comment section and called me a parasite. Like, they there is a true level of animosity and disdain that people have for those they have never met, that just wasn't apparent 15 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And it just doesn't appear like it's going to resolve itself. I was not kidding last year when I said that I was glad that Trump survived. I wish he had never been shot. And that's not because I'm so, da- just dazzled by his performance as president the first time or now. I think he's awful. But in a supposed civilized society, and I know it's a rotten society, the way to remove politicians from possibly gaining power, having influence, is to vote them out, is to gather enough people to make it to where they cannot win an election. It's not to remove the person in this, again, in that violent, grotesque manner. Because as I've said before, all getting rid of Trump does is basically turn the Republicans for a few maybe weeks or months into headless chickens that are just going to pick up somebody else, whether that's Vance or Tucker Carlson or whoever, that will parrot all of his points and then proceed to do the exact same stuff that he would have done anyway. It's not actually changing anything. It's more so about the cult of personality of like, I got rid of this president, but it's not really making anything any difference. Um, but again, it's also the whole moral aspect as well of just people should not feel such a disdain towards those they've never met before to where they want them dead. And you have that on both sides. You have unfortunately politicians who are left wing that have pretty inflamed rhetoric, and then you have politicians that are right wing who have inflamed rhetoric. And I don't know. It seems like the right wing ones are more likely to say that someone despises America, but you get the idea that both sides have rhetoric that really should be toned down. And then when you add mental illness, right? Because normal people are not just getting ready to blast someone over a policy they don't like. It's all just it is a very dangerous minefield. So I hope things get resolved, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I think we're going to have more of these, unfortunately.